Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the hashtag Love Her podcast. I'm here with episode 16 with my sweet friends, Abby Foster and Maggie Talucci. We cover a lot of ground today, but overall, what we talk about is just the tenderness of healing journeys, of being safe containers for others, and just the value of showing up in life for ourselves, in friendship, and in service. We appreciate you being with us today and look forward to sharing this episode with you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the hashtag Love Her podcast. I'm Julie Cole, your host. I'm here with my friends, Maggie Talucci and Abby Foster.
Yay!
Yeah.
For those of y'all who have been listening, Maggie was in an episode with me recently.
We had a lot of fun.
Oh, we did. We did. We laughed a lot. We did not finish sentences. And but we also said we were going to invite ourselves to spend the night with Abby. And so now we have dragged Abby into the fray.
Here she is.
So welcome, Abby.
Here I am.
Would you like to introduce yourself, Abby?
Ooh, I wasn't prepared for that one. Sure. What do you want to know? Anything and everything?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So my name's Abby Foster, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and specialize in addictions and trauma. And part of my reasoning for going into that profession was from my own healing journey and trauma. I'd be like to consider myself one among many wounded healers. I don't know many healers that haven't experienced their own wounds, and I try to do my best to help others along that path, while also space for myself along that path as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maggie, would you like to do a reintroduction in case anybody's dropping in and they haven't actually met you?
Absolutely. Well, I'm a person in long-term recovery, and I met these two, I want to say back in 2017 or 2018. And since that time, I am peer support. I work in the fitness industry too. So I've kind of combined both recovery, fitness, and my newest venture is working with folks who are currently incarcerated, which brings a lot of joy.
We're all visionaries. And I used to say we're all healers. I think we're all self-healers, and we give people courage to be self-healers themselves. Like we hold that. I don't personally feel like I have the power anymore to heal anyone. I have the power to hold witness until they believe in their own capacity and become their own compassionate witness for themselves.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we don't emphasize that enough. A lot of things we'll kind of talk about it, and with EMDR we talk about it too, about like the body and the mind and the spirit. Like it has this innate desire to want to heal, and there is this constant belief, especially in our culture, right, of like, oh, you've got to buy this program or this pill or get with this therapist or this coach to buy the right thing to get whatever the outcome is that you want, and completely detaching from the fact that no, it's in there inside you. But yes, sometimes we do need a coach or a therapist or a pill or something to help us tune back into that part of ourselves, for sure. 100%.
Yeah, none of those things work if we can't sit with it.
That's the piece. As you were talking, what came to me is, and I'm speaking for myself too, as I grow and evolve, oftentimes I want to skip the messy middle, the ugly part. And I think that's when folks turn to gurus or these fitness coaches or therapists, whatever, that are going to fix them. And you got to go through the messy middle. You got to go through it. And I feel like I've been in a long, messy middle, but that's all right. It's just a big growth spurt is what I'm telling myself.
It's a dark night.
It's like, but how many do you have to have? How many do you have to have? Like, yeah. I feel like this is number 4.
When do we arrive?
Right? When are we enlightened? Yeah, exactly.
When we do our retreat together.
That's right.
Yes.
That's gonna be it. That is gonna be it. There's gonna be fireworks and everything. I can just
That's right.
I feel it in my soul.
We're at least going to be burning shit.
Yeah, one or the other.
Oh, man, we're going to add flames to the things we were talking about beforehand.
Are we all fire signs, though? I feel like we are.
Mm-mm.
You're not a fire
No,
sign?
I'm an earth sign, but because I'm a Capricorn, but I'm a Sagittarius rising, so I have that
Okay.
fire
Gotcha. That's,
interplay.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Maggie, you're Aries as well?
I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's appropriate that
We're a
you're
lot.
we're a lot.
We're a lot.
Capricorns are a lot too.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
This is true. I think all
That's
the
very,
signs have, right? They all have
there are things.
their thing.
Although Pisces, I do struggle with Pisces, and I don't know why. Do you struggle with Pisces, either of you?
Blake is my kiddo is and
Yeah.
I don't struggle with it, but I've learned more about that particular sign because when
Mhm.
you're pregnant, you're like, well, this is trying to figure out
Yeah.
what your kid's going to be like.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I always think of it. I'm like, oh, you're a water sign. I'm a
Yeah.
fire sign.
Yeah.
I wanna be friends.
You're putting me out.
Don't
Not
give
bringing
my
me
life
down.
damage.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I'm a Pisces rising. No, wait,
Okay.
or sun. Yeah. And so like, yeah. So it's funny. I think that's where that whole empathy piece comes in for me.
That would make sense.
Because that's where the relational component stuff comes in, right? So I do struggle with primary people who are Pisces signs.
Yeah, the chemistry piece is is a challenge for me, but that's all right.
Yeah. Yep. So
All right, so let's talk about our retreat.
are we going to plan it on the podcast?
We can plan it on the pod. The people want to know. We got to give the people what they want.
All 5 people listening.
The devoted few.
Well, when we go back in like 5 years and we're like, remember when we planned this out on this?
But I think, Julie, you had a really good way of explaining, what we were trying to accomplish, and how it differs from a lot of other retreats that are happening right now. I don't know if you want to go into that. And I think
I can, because Abby and I kind of talked a little bit about that offline too, which is what the normal structure of the weekend retreats or even day retreats are is come and we're going to help you like solidify and figure out this thing about yourself and you're going to leave here healed. And it's like, no, that's not what we're here for. When you're ready for something different, we're going to come in and, we're going to shake it up and we're going to give you a starting point with the goal is not to come in and try to fix something. What you're talking about, Abby, we're not the pill you're going to come take, because that's not how this thing works. Nervous system healing is a slow titrated thing. Like genuine healing that requires integration. It requires time and space and intention. And so the shake-up part of it is just to identify what needs time, space, and attention. It's the adjutant. And that's really what we're going to give you some good next steps. You're going to get some clarity about your shadow or whatever you want to call it that needs to be illuminated and needs some work and space. And then how do we offer ongoing support in being able to do that? But that was one thought. Obviously, this would be something that we would all do together and come up with together. But I know that the 3 of us have that mindset.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. I figured it was,
we
were all on the same page with that.
Yeah, I mean, and I appreciate what you said, Julie. It isn't a quick fix because the system often been ingrained for however many decades we've been working off of it. And for some people, their entire lives. So to expect it to just be undone. This is where I get really frustrated as a therapist, and I love sharing this with my clients. And I kind of joke when I'm talking about the vulnerability of just showing up to talk to a stranger about your secrets and stuff, of owning like, hey, this is weird. What I'm asking you to do is weird. You don't know a thing about me. And in full disclosure, I'm a therapist that hates feelings. Now, I hate my feelings. I was like, I will do yours. The uncomfortable.
Oh, I will.
Like all day. I will sit with you in the darkest of dark. And I'm sure it'll probably happen on this podcast. A genuine, authentic feeling, emotion comes up that I have deemed bad or unwelcome will come up, and I will do my best to let it out. And I will almost immediately do some sort of joke or a silly thing because I'm like, and shove it back down because it's still very difficult for me. And I get so frustrated and I laugh at myself because it's like, oh, yeah, the roles don't apply differently to me just because I'm a therapist and I have letters behind my name. I cognitively understand, and you've even teased me about this on a Marco Polo before. Of when I'll be going through something, and this is part of how I regulate myself, is going away from the emotion and going straight into the cognitive piece of going, well, the reason that I feel this way is because it's triggering this emotion from my such and such attachment. And the false belief or the false temptation is, if I can find the answer and if I can get the right puzzle piece, then that feeling is just going to disappear. And I'm
never going to have to learn to sit in it. Never going to have to learn to actually feel it. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's the part where it's like we're going to the island of safety when we do that. And so like that's the part with trying to break everything down too quickly. Our network within us is a scaffolding. And intellectual structures are a big one for a lot of people, like a lot of us. I'd say us, because I feel like the three of us are very similar in that way. You can't just dismantle the scaffolding. What happens is a lot of people go into places and they dismantle the scaffolding and then there's nothing in its place. And then people go out, they lose their minds, they use again. They get involved in all kinds of crazy behaviors and they call it self-sabotage, and all of these things happen and move too fast. Nervous system healing is a slow process, and like the scaffolding is dismantled little by little. Real quick, I had to laugh because I opened a notebook to put it on the table so I could just write a couple of little notes if I needed to. And the page I opened up to said, learning about it isn't healing from it.
Yeah. Do it. Yeah.
You know how many people want to be an expert in something, but they can't actually sit through the thing that they can tell you all about.
Yeah. And I think there's such beauty of and I think this for those of us that have done our own work, and not to devalue the practitioners out there that have dedicated themselves to study and helping in a place of where they haven't had personal experience, but there is, in my opinion, some sort of magic, if you will, or energetic level understanding of when someone can detect, you really get this. And not only that, but it's that piece of hope of like,
it's resonance.
Right. Yeah. You say, you're saying things that I've thought that I haven't necessarily said out loud to somebody, and you're sitting on the other side of the table, the other side of the couch or whatever it is. And
it's not even just that. You're resonating in your body with my experience, and I can feel that. So it's not even just about the words you say. It's even just about resonating, which is what we were talking about before. So everybody knows when I'm with friends and we know each other well, and I think all three of us could be the lead of each other's demises if we wanted to be, because we know some really personal stuff about each other. And so there's this just real authentic and transparent process where we just are really blunt. I mean, like I told Abby something on a Marco Polo the other day. I was like, if this is too much, you're like, no, I'm here for it. It's good. But there is this part where I'm attuned to you guys, and I know when I go back and edit this, there's an intuitive part where I will know whether it's something to keep or whether it's something to kind of like archive, and it doesn't need to be put out there, because we do fall into our transparent way of communicating with each other, even though we're being recorded. And so there's this part where there's a resonance, and that's the protection. And I think that that's what you get when you have I'm not saying you can't create it, but when you have your own personal experience of doing the work, no matter what the work looks like, because everybody can do somatic work. Like for me, everybody can do somatic experiencing. Everybody has protective mechanisms that lock them away from being able to feel or experience. Nobody's an open portal. And so the truth is that doing the work makes you the safe container. And that's what people can feel.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, this idea of the style of retreat that we would want to do, like in my mind, what kept coming up was this idea of like breaking you open. Of course, that jumped me back to my experience from TTI, or the troubled teen industry. Of that was the theme, or what was being sold, of we're going to break them down to build them back up. And the unfortunate piece of it being, It wasn't, let me hold you as you crack yourself open. It was, I'm going to take a hammer to you and I'm
Yeah.
going to break you open. Retired orthopedic surgeon, of before he would place a person's bone back, or he'll straight up tell somebody, this is going to hurt, you know.
This is
And
not going to feel good. Yeah.
and that's what I feel like we're attempting to create. This isn't a fluffy feel good thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is a, I'm at that place in my life of where I'm already in this discomfort, that I know that if I don't lean into this discomfort and open it up in the correct way to really look at it and examine it, that it's not going, it's not going to get any better. And I don't know of a lot of places that exist like
No.
that.
I know,
No.
I mean, I know of some groups to this day that still have that sort of, I'm going to break you open with a hammer mentality. And, I was talking with someone maybe a year or two ago, and she was like, that is so dangerous. It's so dangerous to do to folks and expect them then to know what to do with all of that. And so I think what everyone was just saying, I think that hits on it perfectly.
And it's understanding that we're talking about a titrated thing. We're not going to come break you open and
No,
turn you inside out and leave you
no.
walking out with your nerve endings out, right? Whether we realize it or not, there's this protective layer that we have, and it's layered and layered and layered and
Mm-hmm.
layered, right? But it's almost like a well we find, and we don't know how deep it is, and we don't know how dark it is, and we don't know what's in it. We just know that like it's behind this like cover.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to do is we're just going to open the cover a little
Yep.
bit, just to like build some idea that there is a well there.
Yep.
Right.
And what happens is when our nervous systems are like a muscle, when we flex them,
Mm-hmm.
right, then we have more capacity to hold. And so it's about flexing into that piece that we always want to naturally pull away from, right?
Yep.
And then allowing space for that. So if you can hold this intensity even just for 30 seconds, and then what most people do is that's when they can start recognizing they have a body, or they have an impulse to do a certain behavior, or they have a meaning that they go to, or they jump to the cognitive structure, or even the narrative that comes with it, right? So like everything has its structure. So in somatic experiencing, it's the SIBAM, what's the sensation, the image, the meaning, the behavior, or the affect. And so it's like just observing those things. And that's where a lot of people get freedom. Cognitive restructuring has its place.
Mm-hmm.
Like cognitive restructuring without restructuring the felt sense experience that comes with it, or at least building awareness around that, is like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. You're just moving it around and restructuring, but you're not changing anything.
Yeah, and then you'll get angry at yourself when your nervous system perceives a threat and you aren't able to pull from the cognitive understanding, and you're like, why am I still doing the old behaviors? And
then you go outside of your window of tolerance immediately,
right.
and you act completely counter to any of the plans that you made.
Right.
To like the plan goes out the window.
Yeah, because that part of the brain goes offline.
Yep. Can't access it. I was trying to explain that to someone the other day. And of course, I have to stay within my scope, but I was trying to just explain it in a very general way. And I'm not sure if it landed or not, but if we can't access that, then how are we going to expect to act any different? Do you know what I mean? It's just, you have to do all of these other things as well.
Well, and the somatic footprint also too. I mean, what we now know is that to think that the cognitive experience is 20% of our total sensory experience, right? 80% of it is our unconscious cues that we're picking up from all of these things in our environment. And that overtakes our conscious brain. It's why it goes offline. So you have to befriend the body at some point. It cannot be the enemy. I tell people often in the early days of my separation, when I really just wanted to be very reactive and like hate text or just blow something up, I got really clear that that impulse to do something like that would come, and I'd get this almost like somebody had like lit sparklers in my hands and my arms. And that was my cue. Once I became aware of that, I was able to go, whoop, hold on, what's going on with me? Instead of acting out, I got clear on, oh, what's going on with me? And then I started layering that back. I was able to align with the value I had identified that I wanted to live in at that time.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I had committed to myself was that I wanted to act in kindness. Kindness was something that was about me being grounded in my values, not in what anybody else was doing. And in that way, nobody can take it from me because it's a value of mine. And so that somatic cue helped me stay within my value set. Had I not had that and those things happened, that was my sign that I was going out of my window of tolerance. And when I went out of my window of tolerance, the explosion would come.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to layer that back and layer that back and layer that back. And I'm still layering it back. And it looks very different. Back then, I just was like, oh shit, I have hands. Now I have hands and feet and a chest. And, like I actually have legs when I'm actually having a sensory experience. Now I have this whole complex interweaving of sensation and emotion and stuff that I have all this space to observe.
Yeah, I love that saying that's our body is always talking to us.
Yeah.
And how for I don't know how many decades of ignoring that. My body didn't feel safe. I didn't trust my body. I didn't feel good in my body. I ignored everything about my body signals. Absolutely. And yeah, I 100% agree with you. And that's one of the things that I try to hold on to too is we all have this idea of how we want to respond in life and be in life. And the better that I can get at recognizing what those feelings are, what those signals are, then I can intervene earlier and earlier. I know for me, it was hard because it started as it wouldn't be until after I had blown it up that I would go, dang it, I didn't do it. But then I could stop and become intentional to go, okay, can I think back on what I was sensing? What were the sensations that
just
were
before that? Mm-hmm.
Just before that, what was I feeling in my body, right? And then it would back up to like immediately after it happened, and I would get a little bit more information, and then I would notice it as it was happening. Then finally, I would get to the place of where, yeah, there's certain sensations that arise that let me know, like, ooh, pay attention. It's an invitation. It feels like an invitation.
It is.
Invitation to an opportunity of how do we, is this a threat and do we need to go this way or something different? Because I've been kind of looking at, for me, some of that piece of that fine line between excitement and angst and anxiety of like, when I'm going to see someone, am I excited because I want to see this person, or is this actually anxiety in my nervous system going, okay, wait, is everything just right? And da 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 da. And I feel the hyper awareness, which feels really good to me as someone who's constantly like, oh. Like to be, you know what I mean? It's like natural. Boom. I am very present and mindful. And what I've started to recognize is like, oh, this isn't always excitement. This is also survival.
Yeah.
And honestly, for me, it wasn't until I think, Julie, you and I started communicating on a regular basis that I even began to look at any of this stuff. So I'm enjoying listening to you all talk because I'm still in the place where I typically have to go back and be like, what was I feeling in my body? Like I'm just getting there. And that's a great start because for years, the only concept that I had of my body was essentially beating it into submission in the gym, using something like weightlifting or CrossFit. And don't get me wrong, it had its benefits. I mean, I built self-efficacy. Like there's a lot of benefits that came from that. But I had no idea about anything somatic. I knew nothing of this work. And I started it honestly out of necessity. I'm like, Julie, I'm not okay. Like I'm not okay at all. And then that really, I guess it was probably about a year and a half ago, maybe. And it was just little baby steps. And so, but it's progress that even now I can go back and be like, oh, where was I feeling that? Like what happened for me? I get tingles in my hands, my palms sweat, and just noticing when that pops up and what is that indicating? So
yeah. Dude, when my arms light up, even still today, if I'm interacting with somebody and my arms light up, that's not
Hmm.
excitement, right? That's
Oh,
anxiety.
that's
That's one of
anger.
mine.
That's
Yeah.
anger.
For me, it's not even anger sometimes.
Mm.
Sometimes it's also like I've been able to differentiate it, but like even being on dating apps, I had a guy message me the other day and like he messaged me and my arms lit up and I was like, all right, I'm gonna unmatch, right? Because there's
I love
something like,
that.
and I couldn't tangibly put my finger on it, but my body's picking up on something here. And
It's familiar.
so, yeah. Oh, and I have to laugh. Every single person I've thought I need to ask this person if they're married when they engage me,
Is married.
100% of the time they're married, right? It's so funny. Not haha funny. But I want to say something, Abby, because you were talking about this, like this somatic experience. And I think this is so important about talking about doing the work and being a container of safety is that where people who think they have your answer are dangerous for people like us is that in the context of a helping relationship, they are helping us perpetuate our childhood patterns of abandoning ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because what happens is that instead of being the space to let somebody crack themselves open and have consent around, and really just sovereignty around saying, learning to trust themselves and saying, yes, this is okay. No, this isn't okay. And then actually, a lot of times I'll attune and I'll say, I just want to make sure because I'm observing this piece and then trusting the person to say yes or no. And then
Mm-hmm.
saying, if we go into it, and a lot of times, if we go into it and it feels it's like not okay, then you need, like, it's okay to signal instead of having somebody jump in. For years in my own therapy, I would get to this place where we would get to that I would get to this place where I would just shut down, like literally, and everything would go blank.
Mm-hmm.
Like no thoughts, no sensations, no nothing. And it was so scary to me because I didn't understand it. And when JP and I separated, I was actually completely dissociating and I was like terrified. And I found a somatic experiencing practitioner who also did IFS because I needed that top. I needed some top down stuff because I had such a heavy intellectual structure. But it
Mm-hmm.
was like the first time I got to that and it went blank, and she said, "It's okay." She didn't get scared. Every other therapist, and Abby, you know a couple of the people I've been with, like highly skilled therapists who just didn't know what to do with it. And so they'd jump in and they'd try to give me answers and they'd have all this
Mm-hmm.
counter transference with me. And then I'm like resisting it. And then I'm getting beat up for resisting, like, and it
Yeah.
would get enmeshed. They would jump in and just merge with me in my stuff and couldn't keep themselves differentiated. And it was so scary for me as a somebody who was a client. So the first time with my person, she said, you're okay. And so she said, I just want you to sit for a second. Just sit for a second. We don't have to do anything with it. And then, like, as I sat for a second and it thawed just a hair, I started realizing I had this screaming across my sinuses.
Mm.
And then what started happening when we'd start get close to something and my sinuses would start screaming, that's my sign. And then I got to a place where I can do so much work and my sinuses don't come on board at all. And so this has been 2 years of this work, but like I can completely fall apart for the most part. I had deconstructed that pattern. And the beauty of that is that it wasn't her telling me, it was her holding the space in a very sure way. Like she had command. And I actually, the first session it happened, I got really scared and squirrely and started doing the whole like spin out thing. And I'm like, this is where my therapist always abandoned me. And again, abandonment wounds, attachment trauma. Blah. And she was just like, you're okay. And
She's just
then,
Like, calm
yeah,
down. It's okay.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she did not merge with me. She was differentiated. And then she said, like, I couldn't calm down. And she said, at some point, you're gonna have to lean into this. And
Mm.
you're gonna have to trust me. I'm here.
yeah.
I'm not scared of this.
Hmm.
And that was the piece. Because when as therapists, and counselors and coaches, even fitness professionals, right? We see this in the fitness world all the time. When somebody starts circling the drain and we jump in and rescue them, we're telling them they shouldn't trust themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That has been a big theme in my coaching style just overall, is exactly what we're talking about. This holding this space so that these folks can begin to believe in themselves. And actually, I have a really recent experience. I was in a fitness class, and there's this woman who she really struggles with self-confidence, and she doesn't always hold eye contact. And she and I really hit it off, though. And I was walking around making sure everybody was good, and I walked up to her and I was like, I can just see the difference. And after working with her in a group fitness class too, it's not even one-on-one, in a group fitness class, working with her for like a month and a half, 2 months, she's already begin to believe in herself a little bit more, because every time I've given her a cue or anything, I always back it up with, you've got this. I know that you do. I know that you do. You're so much stronger than you believe. And I know that that's a little bit different than what we're talking about, but in a fitness capacity, anytime I've ever had a coach in the fitness world that's just so sure that I've got this, it helps beyond words. I don't know that I can put it into words.
You can, and I'll use an example. Maggie, you posted a video of yourself doing pull-ups the other day. When you're cueing people about that activation to like really get the lats engaged, right? That is a cue that you can teach somebody to feel, right? And if you're sure about how to help, and it's not even just about seeing muscular engagement, because like there's people you can't see muscles on, but it's also just the cues of the body. Right. So yeah, if you can teach somebody that feeling, their form will be on point every time.
And I always love when whatever cueing I use, if it's tactile, verbal, whatever, I always love to see just this energetic, like, brightness. Yes. And I'm sure even in counseling sessions, my counselors even said it to me. You can just see when it's like, yes. And you did that. I just was part of it.
Oh, yeah.
I held the container. I gave you the cue. I did the thing. Right.
Yep. So, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, you can teach a man to fit. You can give a man a fish, or you teach him. I know I'm screwing it up, but it is. It's like the cue is the thing. And so otherwise we're just creating more dependency and more attachment wounds, because especially as a professional, and that includes coach, if I'm not meant to be in your life for forever, like my job is kind of to try to put myself out of a job with you, then that person doesn't feel like they can ever not come see you. Or, like in a recovery, so, well, I can't make this, I can't answer this question for myself. Well, why not? I have to ask my sponsor. Well, just to double check. And it's like, no, it's because sometimes people will become so dependent on, I can't trust myself. And that breaks my heart, because it's like, God, then in my head, I'm like, how are we ever not going to feel lost?
Right.
Yeah.
Alone and helpless and powerless. How are we ever going to not feel that way if I can't find any safety within myself? Not saying I don't need people in my life to verify I'm on the right track, because I do.
But there will be seasons where we're set adrift and we can't, those connections may not be hitting, and we got to trust ourselves to move through it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's whether you have a structure of a spiritual underpinning or not. God's not going to like come in and take life away from us. They're going to take the reins. And so that's another piece. God's a framework, a foundation of safety that we can find that can offer some continuity and trust in the process. But at the end of the day, I still have to trust myself to be able to hold myself. That's been the game changer.
And I think for me, for a while, I was resentful at the fitness world in particular. And there have been times that I have been resentful to like the 12-step recovery world too. And I realized, though, that my best work is actually being in those spaces. And I've more recently, as I've gotten back into fitness, I've realized that I word things in a way and energetically am able to create this space for folks to begin to believe in themselves. And that's actually polar opposite from what you see a lot of. And I've really been noticing that over the last few weeks. in particular, as I've gotten back into coaching, is that no, I can actually reach more people and do more of the work that I feel like I'm meant to do. I got to get my own resentments out of the way. So
Yeah.
I don't know why I went on that. I think that was off topic, but that came to me.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I think it's a great point. And the thing about it is all of the things that you're wrestling with, having resentment around, is those are protectors. There's benefits to those things. Y'all know I don't like the word self-sabotage anyway, because I don't believe in that concept. Not in the conscious, I'm fucking up my life on purpose kind of way. But the thing about it is we have this tendency to look at behaviors that we don't like about ourselves and see them in the context of being dysfunctional without owning the benefits that they offer us. And generally there's a protective part of that, right? And that's beyond our consciousness. And so that's why when we try to do cognitive work around it and we don't have this alignment, we just act on it twice as much.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then throw in a few jokes and expect that everything's going to be great. Yeah.
Oh, that's still one of the funniest videos. I love that one. It comes up every year.
But yeah, I think to me it is such a different shift. Like it is and it isn't, but it's just a shift. It's the same stuff, but it's just inviting a different perspective, right? And for me, that's part of why people be like, what's up with the Two Wolves collaborative thing? And for me, I've always loved the Cherokee legend. There's always been a wolf thing, and I've always loved it. It's like all these people that I align with somehow have like wolf things or owl
Very
things.
serendipitous.
Yes. It is. But I never really liked the idea of why do I have to kill one of them off?
You don't.
Because, well, exactly, right? Like,
because if you kill one, you kill both.
Exactly. They're all still parts of me. And like under certain circumstances, I might want that bad wolf, which of course I don't like the black and white, good, bad, right, wrong, right? Everything is on a spectrum. Am I using it in that right alignment or in the right amount or the area in the middle as opposed to the extremes? And the idea of it being a collaborative, I need all of my parts. I want all of my parts. I just want to be the ringleader, right? Or
all the time.
The embodied adult.
The embodied self that we talk about. So that if I need, for some reason, if someone is coming at me in a way that is aggressive, that I can call that aggressive, bad wolf or whatever forth to back me up and keep me safe. Because like you were saying, Julie, at the end of the day, all of these things were like Richard Schwartz talks about, like no bad parts. Like
that's right.
I laugh when people are like, my addiction's out in the parking lot doing push-ups, planning to kill me, right? And it's like, I get it. And I've said this too. So me making fun of that is also me making fun of myself. But it feels so much more aligned with how and who I want to be. So kind of going back, Julie, to what you were saying about values, when I think of it as like, no, my addiction isn't coming and implanting these thoughts into my head to destroy my life and tear me down because things are going so well or whatever. To me, it's become an invitation of if that kind of a thought runs through my head of, hey, what you could do is, then instead of me feeling like something's attacking me, it's an invitation for me to go, okay, what is going on that I am feeling the need that I want to check out?
Yeah.
Right? Of like, it's trying to take care of the fire of whatever the thing is that I'm not paying attention to because I don't like to do my feelings. But the body recognizes it. So it's starting to send some signals of like, oh man, there's some stuff smoking over there. We need to put that out. Then it's so much less of this, which I just don't respond to well, and more of like, oh, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
What do you need right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the thing we create resistance with grows too.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
I always say if we actually are layering ourselves in the 10th step in the big book, it says we're in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We're not trying to like avoid
go
it.
anywhere.
And so that's true with every aspect of our lives. That becomes the thing. Should be neutral with all of those things. all of them. Like, it's funny. I think what scares people about the concept of addiction is the like fear we have around like feeling like if it comes up for us, we don't know how to manage it. There's something we don't know how to
I
manage, and
can't
we do
handle
it.
it.
We exile parts of ourselves, anger and rage and, resentment and all of these things, which are actually in a good, healthy system, are things we should be able to flow in and out of, right? So when we exile them, then in that way, yeah, our addiction is doing the push-ups in the parking lot, because there's an exiled part that when we meet it, we don't have the confidence to walk through it. And I had this really wild experience in one of my somatic experiencing training weeks. We were actually working with stimulating fight energy in one another and trying to hold containers for it, right? Like very targeted, titrated work. And it's like exhausting. If you've ever seen me come back from one of those weeks, for like 2 days, I can't function because we are literally stimulating our own nervous systems and working with each other over and over. And it's just like, it's like intense, but I get something huge from it every time. We were playing with fight energy, and part of what we were doing was like pushing against each other, and the person who was my partner had been my partner on a couple of the things and had a pretty good feel for my nervous system. And so we started pushing, and she started, and I just said, push harder, push harder. She's like, are you sure? And she started pushing really hard. And y'all, had this moment where this rage, like when I tell my story about getting sober, I talk about this rage that was like swirling in me that I couldn't make go away. I mean, drugs and alcohol didn't work anymore. Like I was like 5 days on a run, had been in a different state. I mean, it was like pure chaos. And that rage came up in my chest at that moment. And like my embodied self was like, oh, we got this. Like, we got this. Like, I can totally handle that. And I had
I
this
love
moment
that.
where I was like, it's all become a non-issue for me now. Why? Because I connected the feelings that once scared me and made me feel out of control. Like I don't feel out of control around those anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like people sometimes in 12 step will get stuck on this idea of happy, joyous, and free, and believe that like we're only supposed to feel that way
And it's
all the time.
dangerous if we
It
don't,
is dangerous
you
because we
know.
never learn to hold neutrality with the unwelcome emotions. And so without
Yeah.
that, you can't learn to, oh, I can, it might feel like this is going to kill me and I might feel like I am dying from this, but I know that I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just sucks.
Yeah.
It's actually the freedom of all, right? The freedom to feel through
All of it.
everything. And in that way, I can connect with joy. I always feel like happiness is a track rabbit you chase and never catch.
Yeah.
But like I can settle into the freedom of being able to flexibly move through any state of being, in hardships and in joy and happiness and whatever. I can flexibly move through that with freedom and trust in my own self and trust in my own knowledge of my system. Then joy comes. It's the more I lock it down, the less joy I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when JP and I like decided to separate, suddenly my life got turned upside down, and I had been covered with anxiety for a number of months prior to that and really struggling. It was like 2 weeks after all hell broke loose. I woke up one morning and I realized like I had this spark of joy, and the joy came from the surrender. So my fucking life as I knew it was burning down around me, and this joy I had been seeking found me in the freedom of surrender, even though it was scary as hell. I was literally terrified about what life looked like, and I was deeply heartbroken. I can remember feeling that first spark of joy and thinking, what the hell is this?
What the hell is that?
And why now? And it was like I had gone from this like to this.
I've recently, very recently, experienced little glimpses of joy. To a degree, I have this last year and a half, but I know exactly what you're talking about. I was fighting, accepting my current situation, and everything that I knew from the first 7 years of my recovery is it has just kind of burned down around me, and I kept trying to hold on to so many pieces, and it was like, no. And sometimes I take back that wanting to, resist and control and all of that stuff. But it's a process too. I think that's another important thing to touch upon is everything that we're talking about here. It's all a process. We're all still doing it. We're at different phases in our journey, perhaps, but we're all still doing it. So just because we talk about these things doesn't mean that we get it right every single time. It's a process, and I feel
it always will be.
It always will be. It always will be. But I know exactly what you mean when everything is just like burned down around you. But I'm in this season now where I feel like I've stepped out of the ashes and I'm building building new, building different. I'm different. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, I think that's a good segue to cap because we're just under an hour at this point. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love it. We should do this more often.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Abby, anything else you want to say? Yes, we should do this more often for sure.
Yeah, just thank you. Yeah, I love you guys. I don't ever want to take for granted and always want to hold in gratitude the relationships that I have with you guys of having in a world that can often feel extremely unsafe.
Oh gosh, yes.
And unregulated of like whether or not we don't all talk every day and we're not all in the same place, but of like having those relationships of no matter how long it's been, when you've connected, the second you get together, it's like, oh,
yeah,
my people.
My people.
Yes.
Yeah. Of just peace of like knowing
I'm surrounded by my people. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, the safety. I feel like that's something I have with y'all is safety. Like, and that comes from the nature of the work you do. Like, I think one of the most powerful things happened the other day. I was dropping something off with Abby on Marco Polo, and I was giving her some gory details, and I was like, "Let me know if this is too much." And she just said, "No, because I trust you to know how to take care of you. Trust you to know that this is congruent or not for you." And I did a podcast with Casey, and her and I were talking about that. And it doesn't mean there's not accountability, but the attunement is that you can hold space in yourself to trust me. I can hold space in myself to trust you. There's a flow that creates a container of safety. And I know it's safe because I feel your trust in yourselves and your trust in me as an extension of that.
Yeah. Some of the stuff we've been talking about, I grabbed a sheet of paper. It's a Ram Dass quote. My job is to be a space where nothing in me is preventing the changes that are wanting to emerge in you.
That's going to be our closing thing. And I want you to slow that down and read it again. Okay. Yeah. Hold on. Let's take a breath. I'm going to let everybody who's listening, if they're still with us, the one person who needs to hear this.
Our fans.
Yeah. You know what? I can promise you, shout out to my friend Lane in Mexico. She listens to every episode and I love her. All right. And I want you to read it slow, if you don't mind.
So there's this quote from Ram Dass that I'm trying to keep myself in line with, kind of in all spaces. And the quote is, my job is to be a space where nothing in me is preventing the changes that are wanting to emerge in you.
Well, thank you everyone for being with us. I'm gonna wrap us on that. Y'all, thank you so much for being with me today. I love you guys so much.
Love you right back.
Dude, I can't wait for us to take the world over. One nervous system at a time. All right. Thanks, guys. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.